Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the From Adversity to Abundance podcast. I am your host, Jamie Bateman. I almost said good deeds there, let's be honest. And I am excited today I'm joined by Luis Miranda. Luis is a fellow note investor and somebody I've been working with a little bit. We've been working together over the last few months. I'm really excited to talk to Luis and dive into his background and some of the adversity, abundance, and maybe more adversity and maybe more abundance that he's been through. So, Luis, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Just like I went walking this morning, so I'm kind of refreshed. I did my sitting, so
Nice.
Yeah. So I'm doing good. I need to get that lion mindset out of the way. That's something from Power of Wind that Chris mentioned.
Okay. Yes.
I wake up at 5:30, so I'm kind of energetic and trying to find a way to settle down.
Okay. Nice. I wish I was energetic at 5:30. No, but you're right. Everybody's wired differently. So yeah, this is awesome. I really, I'm excited to get into your story. I know you shared a good bit of it with me last week, and it's, you've been through a lot, and we're going to get into that. But for the listeners out there who are unfamiliar with who you are, can you give us just kind of an overview of a snapshot of who you are today and what you have going on?
Yeah, sure. I'm a software developer part-time now. I switched over last year, and I'm growing my notes portfolio. I've been doing that since last year. This year, we're targeting to go to 100,000 in assets, and then next year I would like to hit 200,000. So yeah, just starting up.
Yeah.
So, and
okay.
And that's on the business side, and then on my personal side, I'm a Zen practitioner. I've been practicing Zen for 3 years at a center down closer to Philadelphia. So yeah, that's been a game changer for me in terms of thinking of others and unity and that spiritual practice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we're definitely going to get into that. And so you're outside of the Philadelphia area, is that right?
Yep.
Gotcha. How long have you been there for?
I've been here now for it's been 6 years.
Okay.
I've been living outside of here. Yeah, I was living in Jersey when I first came to the States, jumped around. We'll get into that later. But then moved to outside of Philly after I graduated from school, and for
Gotcha.
work.
Okay. So, I mean, from the surface, and again, we obviously are going to gloss over a ton of important details from your life. We only have a limited amount of time, and that's true with every guest. But from the surface, from the high level viewpoint, I would say that, for our listeners out there, you strike me as as who you are today, kind of an everyday person that people can relate to, right? You're not Grant Cardone, or you're not worth $50 billion. You're not like crushing it. So I think this episode, I'm really hoping our listeners can really relate to you as a human. So I know you wanted to share your screen, so why don't you go ahead and do that, and we're gonna jump into your backstory and go from there. So go ahead and share your screen, and then let us know what is this here for those watching on YouTube.
Yeah, this here is the home. I was born and raised in Peru, South America, and this was the home that I was raised. There was only two rooms in that whole house. They did an extension, I guess, after I left to the States, but there were only 2 rooms growing up: the bedroom, and the other room was like everything else, living room.
So this is bigger than what you grew up in.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It was only the backside that was there, and then growing up in this home, we didn't have electricity. So what my stepdad would do is he used to steal electricity from this light post here. So we would have electricity when the light post came on, maybe like 6 p.m. And then it'll close electricity in the morning, 6 in the morning. And then whenever he gets caught by the, I guess, municipality, they cut it off, and then we'll just have to have the candle on for dinner time,
Wow.
Yeah. And then
we get upset when we lose power for an hour.
Yeah, I'm used to that now,
Yeah, it's all relative, I guess. But okay, so yeah, tell us more about what it was like to grow up here.
Yeah. So there was here this used to be our neighbor next door. He used to have a water well, so we didn't have running water or sewers either. So we used to pay him to like every month to get us some water from his well, and we used to just keep it in tall buckets. And if you need to flush the toilet, you have to just dump water down to the toilet to get it to flush, because we didn't have water. So
yeah, that is, I mean, and I don't mean to keep jumping in, but I told you before we hit record, when you showed this to me, I said my first reaction was, this reminds me of Iraq. Just certain parts of, and not honestly, not the nicer parts, to be fair. I spent a year in Iraq, and this actually really does bring back some memories. So yeah, not, I wouldn't say from a financial standpoint, you were living in abundance. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, definitely. No, we would sometimes, my stepfather, he was an alcoholic, and so we sometimes didn't have money coming into the house. We'll go a day without food, maybe 2 days, and so at that early age, I would go visit my aunt. She lives down. Where my house is at, we're up on the side of the mountain. This is a valley, and so downtown is where like you have the running water, the electricity, and so forth, but not up where we at. So I would go downtown, and I would go to this and just help her. I was probably less than 10 years old. I was helping her out. Like pluck chickens, because she used to sell it up for in the front of her house. And I remember I was doing that for a bit. She would give me the chicken blood in a bag. I used to take it home. My mom figured out how to make some meal out of it, like rice, fried rice, and the chicken, the blood coagulates. So it kind of, it tastes like liver, the texture. So, so I was kind of helping out where I can at the point, because like I said, my stepdad, he would jump from job to job doing construction. So it wasn't steady income coming into the house. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I had my brother is in Taiwan, and he made me try pig's blood when I was over there, but which was different. So yeah, well, I know, like I said, you shared some real serious, difficult, adversity, challenges that you went through as a child, and we're not going to get into, obviously all the details, and and certainly share whatever you feel comfortable sharing. I appreciate you being vulnerable on the show, and I'm sure there are a few listeners out there that are going to be able to relate to some of what you say, at least. So
yeah, sure.
If you don't mind, dive into some of the kind of, relationship. I mean, the poverty is just apparent, and it's I don't know what that's like on a day-to-day basis, right? But I know you went through some additional hardships, so please share about that if you would.
Yeah. So I think so. Growing up for me, it was about looking for stability. I think that's a normal thing, right? And so living in this home with my stepdad and so forth, there was the reason he was my stepdad is because my mom, she walked away from an arranged marriage with him to be with my father, and when they had me, he left to the States, and then she needed help like supporting me, so she got back with my stepdad. So growing up in the house, he really, I feel like he will come beat up on my mom drunk in the middle of the night, or he will come and also hit me, like for sometimes, like I feel like it's no reason, like anything that I can justify as a kid. So that was one aspect of it. And then that was this home here, so looking for stability. My grandmom's house, my father's mother, so I would go visit her once in a while, and then that kind of felt cozy out of the violence. And she tried to take custody of me, and she succeeded. There was a lot of a fight back and forth, and then I ended up with her. And I told, I thought this was, this is more stable.
And I mean, just if I can chime in, I mean, it seems like not just stable, but also safe and secure, I would guess, right?
Yes. They lived in a different city, and they had their own little store and so forth. So they had a way to maintain themselves at that point.
Hmm.
You're right, it felt safe, and there was food coming in, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, so forth. So yeah, it felt more stable that way.
Hmm.
But then to me, it felt like all of a sudden, as a child, she started to also mistreat me. Like growing up now, I feel like it was more of my grandfather putting pressure on her, and maybe that led to her changing the way she was treating me. That was one aspect of it. The other aspect I mentioned to you before was also that was where I had a cousin of mine that started to molest me. So I went through that also there, and he was it wasn't just me, it was other cousins that I knew there too, and I was a kid, maybe like around 10 years old at that point. So that didn't feel stable anymore.
Sure.
And then from there, my grandma, my father got, I was staying in touch with my dad in the States, and then he wanted to know if I wanted to live with him. I say, yeah, that's something I want to do, and then so we worked on that, and and I got my green card, came to the States maybe at the age of 12. And yeah.
So, and again, I mean, I'm obviously not a therapist, not that you're coming to me for for that, but it's there's not much I can say other than I'm really sorry you went through all that, and it's very easy to say that. We're talking 12 years, it sounds like, of real pain and adversity, and this isn't 12 days or 12 months. I mean, this is like very, I don't know how old you are now, but I imagine 12 years is a good chunk of your life, regardless of your age. But no, that's just something I can't fully relate to. But okay, so basically didn't have any safety and security or stability, as you said, in anywhere you were living in Peru, any of the family members you place trust in. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like there was just that always went south. I mean, it just so you probably got some serious trust issues. And this is me playing therapist, but and have never really felt safe and secure, and then the poverty. I mean, just all of it. There's a lot going on there. So yeah, okay. So 12 years old, approximately, you make your father asked you if you want to come to the States, and there was some work there, it sounds like, to make that happen. And then you come to the States. Pick it up from there, if you would.
So with my father in the States, and I probably lived with him for like a year, and that's 12 out of 12 years of my life, that was the longest I lived with my father. He will come to Peru, and I will see him maybe for like a week, then he'll leave, and whatnot. So fine. So I came here, felt that was stable. I was in a home. This was in New Jersey, right outside of Northfield, outside of Atlantic City. So they had their jobs in Atlantic City, working at the casinos. And it felt stable. I was starting to go to school, learning English and so forth. And then things turned again, because I came to find out that he was molesting my stepsister. And I felt like I should do something, because, like I said, growing up, also I was getting molested, but then also my cousins were, and I felt like I wasn't doing anything. Like I could have done something. I always felt bad about that. So this time I felt like I needed to do something. I went to my school teacher, told them about it. They took me out of the home, and I ended up in foster care. So again, not stable, right? And then in this case, we this first home, foster home that I was staying at, I felt like this was a place, like I was there for like at least a year. So I'm like, maybe this is the place that I can grow up in. And then and so there was another foster kids there that they left to live with their parents. And then their parents, the story that I got after everything happened is that their parents tried to extort like money out of my foster parents. Like, so the way they did it is they took them to court. talking about like, my foster dad was like, do like molesting my like the foster kid that was there. And, and they took him to court because of that. But that never went through. They dropped it after they found out there was no money really to be had there, right, in the lawsuit. So at that point, everybody left the home, right? I was in another home.
The damage was done at that point.
Absolutely, damage is done. Like they were like blacklisted from being foster parents, and so
Wow.
I think at that point I'm maybe 14 or 15, and I kind of like I gave up basically in terms of stability. So that's where I started to go to school, and I'm in like middle school, and and growing up there, kids, like you see kids smoking in the bathroom, just like the rural crowd kind of coming up, like being part of it, right? So, and at that point, that was kind of like where I decided to go. And I remember there was a turning point where a teacher in middle school asked me, you used to be such a nice child coming into the school here, what happened? And my feedback to her was that, basically like being nice doesn't get you anywhere, And so
Wow.
that was a turning point for me. That was, like I said, like around 14 or 15. And, and so just from there, jumping from foster home to foster home at that point until the age of 18, somewhere in the middle, running away from my foster home, stayed in a shelter. Then I stayed up. I went to Salem. I ended up in Salem somehow. Stayed in an abandoned house there.
This is Salem, Massachusetts.
New Jersey.
New Jersey. Salem now. Gotcha.
Yeah.
I think there's several Salems.
Sorry, good point. Yeah.
Salem, New Jersey. Okay. Yep.
Yeah. So I was there, for a few months. We're breaking into like a food stand to get food for us, and we staying in this abandoned, like this boarded up home or whatever. And then from there, detention center. I was, again, this was a part of my life until the age of 18 that I'm like, I really don't care where I end up, right? So, so I don't know if I mentioned already, I dropped out of school. I decided, like, what's the point? Like, I just want to start making money. Like, I'm good with just like people that I knew at that point were doing construction work. Maybe because of the whole real estate stuff happening around that time, it was like booming. So a lot of work. So I'm like,
around what time was this? What year?
This was in the, I would say, in the late 1990s or early 2000s.
Gotcha.
Early 2000s.
But at this point, it's day to day. Your future is not what you're really focused on.
Yeah.
You're trying to make ends meet, and kindness is not getting you anywhere. So it's just you're a product of your environment at this point. I mean, which is not a healthy one.
Yeah. And you can, just for context, growing up during that time, like I said, it was the wrong crowd, but rap was a thing, and it was a part of a culture that I grew up in. A lot of Tupac, Biggie, Jay-Z, like they didn't speak about going to school and be educated. They talk about drugs and and money and guns and things like that. And so around that time I met someone that was older than me. I kind of saw him like my older brother, and he was into Scarface. And I don't know if you ever watched Scarface, but Scarface, it's about making it big by selling drugs, right? And so he kind of introduced me to coke and ecstasy. And I remember when we kind of parted ways, like he offered me like to do heroin together before he left. And I did that once because thankfully, Jamie, for me, coke and ecstasy and heroin, I wasn't like addicted to, thankfully. Thankfully that was something that I tried, and that was easy for me to drop, because coke, for example, like was giving me like a locked jaw in the next day, and that was like not a fun feeling, I'm like. So anyway, so all these things, and then I ended up in technical school at the age of 18 because foster care was like, hey, you're an adult now, right? You gotta go somewhere. So I ended up in upstate New York in a technical school funded by the federal government. And kids from like New York City will end up there to get their life together. Like the judge will send them there, for example.
Does the foster home have something to do with that, placing you there? What is that transition? How did you end up there?
Yes, it was the social worker. So you're assigned a social worker in DIFUS is the name of the agency and whatnot. that deals with, so you're always assigned a social worker, even if you live in these foster homes. So, and the social worker, she was like, Louis, you can do better than this. Like, you have the potential to do better. And I'm like, at that time, like, just construction, GED, I'm good. Like, I really wasn't asking for much more, but she was like, you really have more potential. So she kind of, she pushed me, nudged me to get into like something like, I used to like computers. That's something that I used to enjoy. She was like, once you go to a technical school, learn how to do IT work, I think you have the brain for it. So like, she nudged me to.
So she believed in you. I mean,
yeah,
sounds like.
Yes, she was somebody that and when I was in the detention center, right, for a few months, she's the one that came there and she was like, look, you do something wrong again, you're going back to Peru. So like, you need to like get it together. But I still it went the wrong way. But she was always there, like you said, for support, kind of reminding me and believing in me. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah. So now we are going to have to speed up a little bit here. So from now, what was your mindset at that point? Or was there a shift there mentally?
Yeah. So technical school, I was there. I didn't have anyone that to support me. So I started to sell weed there and bring it into the VOTEC, right? If you get caught with that, it's a federal offense because you're in federal grounds now, right? So but like I said, at that point, like I didn't care. But
you
like,
didn't care, right?
Yeah, but there's a turning point, like you said. So during my time there, I would just had a lot of time to sit on my own and just kind of reflect. So I realized I can go two ways down this path, right? I can either become like a drug dealer and use kind of like just my mind to be successful there. But then I felt that's a gamble, because if something went wrong, then all of that can be taken away pretty easily, right? So it didn't feel. Yeah.
So the risk is pretty severe. I mean, it's if you do get caught, the penalty and the consequence is very real and fairly permanent. Sounds like. So, but at this point, you're not thinking about what's, I mean, morally right or wrong. It's practically what's best for me, which I get it. I mean, I'm not judging. I'm just, I'm trying to understand where you were mentally. So, okay. So you have two ways, you realize you have two ways to go. And I think it's important to point out that you created this, or you were in an element of space. So you could actually take a step back and look at the big picture. So you had a lot of time to sit and think, which it sounds like you're doing nowadays more intentionally. But you had two ways you could go. And so what did you choose at that point?
So I decided, this drug stuff, I'll stop. Let me finish getting my certificate here for IT. Let me get out and find a job, which I did. When I went to look for a job, then, again, like the places I would have applied for, they asked for someone that had experience, so I never ended up getting a job fixing computers, like getting into IT. So at that time, another person that appeared again in my life was my foster mom on the first home that we got kicked out from, right? Even though she couldn't have foster kids again, like that's still a relationship I wanted to keep. So I found a way to get in touch with her, and she believed in me. And I think that's important to point out, like somebody else that believed in me. So she convinced me to go back to college and get a degree, right? And at that point, like I said, I wasn't no more getting into trouble illegally doing things, right? So I ended up, let me do that. Let me go to college. Let me get a degree. Really focus. I don't care about football, sports, and whatever college has to offer in terms of parties. Like, I just want the degree now and get to the next step in my life. So I went into DeVry University, which was like all about just classes. There was no sports and things like that. So I ended up. It
was all academics. Yeah.
All academics, right? So I went there for computer engineering and development. And so in there, again, I think my GPA was like 3.4 or something. It was up there because, again, just work. I sat in front of the classes, asked the questions. I didn't care whether I looked stupid or not. That wasn't a priority for me. It was like, I want to get a good grade to get a job right after this. So
that's a good note and bolt right there. Is don't worry about looking stupid. Just ask questions.
Absolutely.
So I mean, there's so much here that we could unpack. Well, we might have to have you back on for a follow-up at some point. So yeah, one takeaway for me so far, already is that yes, you personally play a major role in your own decision making and the actions that you take for sure. I mean, you could have chosen not to go the path you did choose, but it doesn't sound like it. I mean, those couple of people we already mentioned who believed in you, it doesn't seem like it was, that much of an effort on their part. I could be wrong, but to speak that, support and belief into you, and it had a major impact on your decision making and then your path going forward. So, that's important for the listeners to take away as well. It's just if someone, don't be afraid to support people. And it's amazing, how much influence it sounds like those two individuals had in your life. So I just wanted to highlight that.
Yeah, absolutely. So that the next step here is, I ended up graduating, and part of the graduation, they kind of have relationships with companies around the area. So I ended up getting hired by a company doing software engineering work, where they had, they would do plants, they install robots in plants, and I would go travel to different parts. I would go to Singapore, I would go to Canada, I'll go across the country in the States and go into these plants and just do the programming portion of the robots that do just kind of like supporting assembly work, whether it's newspapers, whether it's hospitals, to delivering food to operation rooms.
And how did you get that job, did you say?
Again, it was through the graduation of the school. They had relationships with companies around the area.
There's kind of a placement program there. Gotcha. Okay. And approximately what year was this?
This was in 2007. I got hired. Yeah, in 2007, I got hired for this.
Okay.
job.
So, and then from 2007 until today, I know that's a long time, but if you could,
absolutely.
The highlights.
Yeah. So the highlight is that, just the whole backdrop of me growing up. Just take that as a reference, because now I get to the point where I have this job doing software development work. I'm married, I'm making 6 figures, and that kind of was the line dream as a child where I wanted to get to. Yeah. So I felt like
you had made it.
I made it. I mean,
$100,000 or more compared to what you grew up in.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's
I
a
have
lot.
a home now, and so forth, right? So, but again, at this point, I'm not happy. I'm unhappy, actually. I'm frustrated, right? Should I, I reached this goal, but like, I feel like I'm still grinding, right? So, what else can I do at this point?
So there was just, it wasn't all it was cracked up to be. And this is something Lewis and I, we talked about beforehand. We wanted to really highlight this point of your story, Lewis, because, and this is one of the things I want to make sure I avoid on this show in general is it's not like life is 20, 30 years of adversity and then 20 or 30 years of abundance, or however many years you want to throw in there. It's, you had some serious adversity. I mean, that's an understatement for sure. And for many, many years. And then you worked your way toward a positive path and started to have prosperity financially, really. And but then you weren't satisfied. It sounds like it's even more than that. It's not just that you weren't satisfied. What was your mindset at that point?
At that point, it was like I reached this point and I don't feel like happiness is nearby. I'm having, there's arguments at home, my wife trying to be supportive, but me kind of pushing back because I'm in the mindset of myself, how can I make things happen on my own? Not yet have learned to leverage others' times, right? And what kind of issue I was running into. Like I didn't have any kind of financial education is the point, right? I was just all college stuff to what I needed to do. So, and so I also at that point, I'm like, should I even continue living? Like, what's the value of going through life now? Like I've made it and I still feel like there's no happiness here, So all of that started to turn at some point because maybe I thought, hey, maybe I can get into stocks and options investments, right? And maybe that'll kind of give me the life that I need where I don't have to work. But that was also time intensive. to wake up in the weekends and kind of read through financial statements and kind of make decisions of what investments to make, things like that. Then I thought, hey, maybe I can open up an online store, but also that's time intensive, right? Inventory, keeping up with what to sell and things like that, right?
So was your goal at this point to get to I mean, hope to quit your job, or was it to, what was your goal in searching down these paths?
It was to quit my job, right? And not yet not yet have a spiritual practice hasn't come into this point, right? I'm thinking, how can I make it outside of having to put up, work time and still bring money in, right? And then finally, this kind of I listened to this Robert Kiyosaki's podcast, Rich Dad Poor Dad, and that kind of introduced me to, like the financial education part, right? Most importantly, though, was like, how to work in a team, and leverage others to, have financial.
Well, I mean, you had ample reason for not trusting others. I mean, you've tried to rely on other people for your whole life, and it's backfired for the most part. So I don't blame you for having trust issues. I'm all about teamwork, and but it's easy to say when I didn't grow up in your environment. So as we speed it up to the current day, you've incorporated spiritual practice, teamwork, and I know you told me before, just focusing on others as opposed to just yourself. So can you speak to that a little bit?
Absolutely. Yeah. So from the financial education portion, one thing that was introduced was the 7 habits of successful people. And I got Covey. Stephen Covey, and I got into that book, and spiritual practice, and, sharpening the soul was something that kind of stood up to me. But I'm, like you said, trust issues. So like, how do I make this work? So that's where I felt like I need to find a spiritual practice that's right for me. I grew up in a Catholic home. I went through like different other religions. Islam, Muslim was like it was a Muslim home that I was raised in as a foster child for a few months, and they were pretty intensive. But it wasn't like none of those things resonated. So then so Zen practice was the practice that I picked up 3 years ago, and and now that's helped me see things in a different way, from a place of unity, where we're not separate, we're more like a left hand and right hand to one entity, right? And so like that mindset shift has helped me, at work full time. I got switched to part time because they didn't want to lose me. They said they'd rather have me as a part time than lose me, period, because they found value in having me there. And I felt like part of it is that I'm happy to help others in the company, not just in my team. There's other teams. We all kind of have to maintain, that this company, like we have different applications. So so in that kind of mindset of unity and bringing value to others, right? And kind of investment, I feel kind of goes hand in hand with spiritual practice, because in investing, going into these RIA, courses and meetings, it was about bringing value to other people, and that's something that kind of resonated with me also. So so now those are the two things that are also, that are important to me as well, right? Is like how to bring value to others. And then spiritual practice, keeping up with it. And there's so much responsibility once you realize that, that we're all kind of one entity, breathing organism, right? Even though we're separate bodies, we're kind of not, we're all kind of relative.
That's the part. I mean, when my kids hear responsibility, that's a bad word. They don't want responsibility, right? But really what you're getting to is you're a part of something bigger than yourself, and you're adding value, like you said. So your company needed you, so they didn't want you to walk away 100%. So that feels good to you to be needed, right? So I think we all want to be part of something bigger than ourselves, as much as we like to run our own day to day, not be told what to do, and be our own boss, which sounds cool. But ultimately community and being a part of a bigger, not just a group that does nothing, but a bigger purpose, that where you're moving forward. So when I heard you say responsibility, that sounds like it gave you direction and meaning to your life versus when you had made it,
Yes.
And now what, right? Because you were all about yourself. I mean, not again, not I get it, right? I'm not judging. I'm just saying you've changed your perspective to
Yes.
serving others and being a part of something bigger. So, anything to add there before I fire off some questions?
No, that's it. I'm good.
Okay, now it's quite a. I mean, that's quite a journey. There's nothing I can say that's, you know, it's just a wild story. But again, it's, and not just a story, it's very real. But it's a lot of ups and downs, and not just a straight trajectory of from desperation to from adversity to abundance. It's a roller coaster. It sounds like, but sounds like you're in a much better place mentally, spiritually, financially, than you were 20, 30 years ago.
Absolutely.
So, and now you're into mortgage note investing, and I know you started down the path of infinite banking. Just share some information about you, whether you like it or not.
No, good. Yeah.
So, I mean, you're constantly learning about, finance and investing, and which, we all are. I mean, I am as well. It's not like,
I'll tell you one thing that does come up for me is that, I think you mentioned this earlier, is that even though I made it and I'm still working through things, like there is no end to the path that I'm going through, because like I said, responsibility is one thing, right? So what that means is, when you're going through situations, whether it's at work or, in outside of work, you're gonna run into people that are going through something, and sometimes, the mind that I used to have was fix. How can I, once you try this, but sometimes what's needed is a space, just giving the person the space to reflect, right? Versus another voice that kind of clouds their path, what they're trying to go through, maybe, and sometimes you have something of value that you may want to share. So kind of you have to be conscious or mindful of the situation you're in, so that you can help others, whether it's giving them space, giving them advice, or what,
Did my wife tell you to say that?
Yeah. Sorry. No.
That's a challenge I face, because look, I mean, for the most part, if I come to you with a problem, I want a solution.
Right.
And it's not always the case with everyone. And it certainly depends what they're going through, like you said. So you need to be able to read the situation and be flexible on how to approach it. It's not just, here's your solution, bye.
Right.
So that's good. But so I'm going to fire off some questions, and then we're going to wrap up here. We'll see where it goes. We'll try to keep these answers brief. What do people misunderstand about you?
About me, I think I'm shy. I'm very shy, and I feel like, because I am shy, people may think that I don't want to relate or be.
Sure.
Or be friendly, maybe, and so that's changed recently, where I kind of more go out of my way to say hi or to just start a conversation, right? It's not my nature. It's out of habit. So it's kind of bringing this new habit in,
Gotcha. That's good.
something that I'm working on. Yeah.
What's one of your biggest failures?
Biggest failures for me was, I had a bunch, man. Right. So
it doesn't have to be your biggest, but one that pops into your head.
Yeah, and for me, I wish I would have started down the path of infinite banking a lot sooner. Financial education, not obviously something that I found, unintentionally, I guess, right? But I wish I had that. To me, if I would have started that 10 years ago, man, I would be in a different place. Absolutely.
Oh, that's good. If you could have coffee with a historical figure, who would you choose?
For me, we're going through this book in our Zen practice, and the sixth Grandmaster of Zen, Huang Nan. He was in the 700s. On the 700s, he was alive, and he's someone that I would like to. He probably won't want to have lunch. He'll probably want to sit and meditate or kind of stuff. But that's someone I would like to have met.
Got it. Yeah. If you were given $10 million tomorrow, what would you do with it?
For me, it would be, I think I will still continue note investing, building. I would like to build our own place, because this place kind of is nice to be at, but it's not, there's still things that we're missing here. And work on, and this nonprofit work is more to do with the Zen practice that I'm on, that path, I tell Maria, Maria's like, we should win the lottery, right? And I tell her, but we don't even know what to do with $50,000. Like, we're working on that, right? So that we know what to do with $10 million,
Right. Yeah, that's good. And what's the nonprofit work you're doing?
Nonprofit, right now there isn't anything
Okay.
nonprofit, but I think through the Zen practice, like Zen, like our center, they're tied to visiting prisons, right?
I gotcha. So the what you're a part of is a nonprofit center. Got it. Let's see. What is a book or two that you'd recommend?
It's going to be The 7 Habits of Success.
Got it.
That was a game changer for me.
Yeah, that was a good one. I read both the book. I guess you said the podcast, but I certainly read Rich Dad Poor Dad back in the day, and this is going to be controversial according to for real estate investors. But that book didn't actually do a lot for me. It didn't. It was good for a mindset shift, I guess, but it kind of left me like, okay, yeah, but now what? But he did Cash Flow Quadrant was really good. I read that more recently, but the point I'm getting to is 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. That's the book you're talking about?
Yes.
I mean, that was a great book. That was fantastic. I've read that a long time ago as well. How about a movie that you'd recommend? Do you watch movies?
Yes, I do, not as much now. So I think I'll have to, because I'm going to mention Korean movies, which I don't think is of any value to me, because my wife is into Korean shows. So that's why that comes up.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Anything other options besides movies? I can't think of one.
TV show, anything,
Yeah. I think I like documentaries in general.
Gotcha.
That's like biographies, for example, kind of stuff. There was one about Charles Chaplin. I was listening to or watching the other day. Yeah, there's a movie.
Cool.
Like that.
What's one question you wish I'd asked you, but I haven't asked?
I think you've done pretty good. You kind of directed me on the story. There was there's so many directions we could have gone through with this.
Oh yeah,
Jamie.
Yeah.
So I don't think I think these points that we hit were pretty important.
What would you say do you want the listeners to take away from this episode, if you had to drill it down or boil it down rather, to distill it down to maybe 2 takeaways, something like that? What can the listener learn from your story and your situation?
Yeah, I think one takeaway is that, sometimes you meet people that don't know what they want in their life, right? And sometimes you're like, oh, why don't you try this, try that, right? But there is no, I feel like people don't have an anchor that kind of direct them in their path, right? For me, like I had a few that I had to go through, I feel like spiritual practice is a takeaway, that there needs to be like some kind of spiritual practice that you're in tune with, so that you realize, so to help you realize like you're part of something bigger, right, than just yourself. I think it's important,
So what's your and I don't want to cut you off, what's your take on kind of wealth and money in general? I know that's a loaded question, but you grew up in what I would consider extreme poverty, and now you're doing well. It's all relative, but is money good, evil? How do you view kind of the pursuit of money? What's your take on that?
Money. I'll give you the story. I think this was Robert Kiyosaki that kind of that resonated with me, right? There was I think there was a doctor that graduated. He wanted to help other people, right? So he had his own practice, right? And he was going day in and day out, going into this practice, and he made some good money out of it, right? But he realized that he was pretty limited by his 2 hands, right? And so then he went to the path of financial education, how to run a business, and then he ended up building a hospital. and how to hire teams to work in the hospital, right? And then to run a business that way, right? So that he can help more people that way, right? Kind of scale, So
Sure.
to me, wealth is kind of to help scale dreams, right?
Right.
So I don't view
Yeah,
it.
no, I like that. It can really expand your impact. Don't get me wrong, we have plenty of greedy capitalists in the US here, right? And it's easy to get too focused on chasing that dollar. But it really gets to, why are you chasing the dollar? And so, because I think the other, extreme isn't good either, where you view money as bad or something. It can enable you to really have a greater impact in the world, I think. So
Jamie, just the second thing, the like kind of points. Second thing is like a lot of people think in terms of absolutes, either yes or no, this way or that way. Like, how can I
it's easier. It's easier.
Absolutely, it's easier. When you get out of school, they teach you theory. They don't teach you experience, right? So the point is, you're taught these theories and this absolutes, right? So and when you go when somebody new into my team comes in, they kind of they're expecting that, like these absolutes. What is the way to do it, And sometimes, but what I realized is, through experience, you learn to be comfortable in gray areas, right? How to make decisions relative to your situation,
Yeah.
I think that's important.
Yeah, that's really good. That's when we're short on time here, but when I was doing jujitsu for a few years, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, I need to get back to it. Although I guess the COVID numbers are going back up, I don't know.
Right.
But one of the main takeaways for me from that practice was, just getting comfortable being uncomfortable. And it sounds like an oxymoron, or just something that's impossible to get to, but you're constantly, especially if you're rolling with, if you're going against someone who's better than you, you're going to be uncomfortable. You're not going to be able to dictate the circumstances. And so if you try to fight against that constantly, you're just going to wear yourself out and you're going to lose. So you have to be able to kind of pick your battles and time things appropriately. But through that, to get to that point, you have to be able to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And that doesn't mean severe pain. It just means be patient and just be okay with, for now, not being where you want to be, because an opportunity is going to present itself. And that's definitely something I took from jiu-jitsu. And there's a lot that can be applied from different sports to life, but that's a different podcast episode. So no, I think like you said, we've covered a ton of ground. I mean, we could have gone in 7 or 8 directions here. Your story is, I had no idea. I mean, I think a few months ago you chimed in on Facebook about, because you tend to, from my observation, you don't comment a lot in our Facebook group, the Notes and Bolts group, but when you do, it's very valuable, and there's a lot of content there. It's quality over quantity. But one of the things you mentioned a few months back was, about the foster homes, and but then when we've been getting to know each other more over the last couple of months, your story is, I mean, it's amazing. It's painful. It's you've been through a lot. I joke about this show that, does this potential guest meet the adversity and the abundance threshold? And you definitely met the adversity. You checked that box a few times for sure. But and I think you've met the abundance. I mean, it's, again, I'm not judging. It's just you've come a long way, and it's I'm just thankful that you were willing to get vulnerable and share on the show for the listeners, because that's really who it's all about. So, Louis, as we wrap up here, anything to add?
No, I think we're good, man. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you very much. Where can our listeners reach out to you if they want to connect with you?
Like you said, I lurk in the Notes and Bolts community.
It's a Notes and Bolts from the Good Deeds Note Investing Group. That may change. The name may change here shortly. I don't know. But is there an email address or anything you want to give out, or you don't have to? It's up to you.
I can't. I mean, I'll give you my personal one. lems111@gmail.com.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Great. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Louis. Really appreciate it. And to the listeners out there, we very much appreciate you spending your most valuable resource with us, which is your time. Thanks,
Yes.
everyone. Take care.